The Thraxians' homeworld shook from orbital bombardment. Alien buildings collapsed. Small reptilian children screamed for their mothers. The Krag's energy weapons turned the once beautiful Thraxian cities to rubble and ash. The lizard-like Thraxians were on the edge of extinction. All hope seemed lost. That was until a human starship emerged from hyperspace. The Defiance was a massive war machine. It bristled with railguns, missile pods, and beam weapons. Its hull was matte black nanocarbon fibers that swallowed light. The Defiance's sublight engines rumbled like a beast from hell as the human ship moved to engage the Krag warships. Captain Zephyr Xanatos stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. He watched the Krag dreadnoughts on the view screen. The Defiance was outnumbered 3-1. The Krag ships were bigger and had superior technology. Victory seemed impossible. But Zephyr didn't believe in impossible odds. He'd faced them too many times before and won. Earth had received the Thraxian distress call 3 days ago. The Thraxians were a peaceful species. Scientists, not soldiers. They were defenseless against the Krag's onslaught. If the humans didn't stop the Krag here and now, an entire alien race would be erased from existence. Billions of innocent lives snuffed out. Humanity couldn't let that happen. Not again. Not after the Arcturians and Zeltecs. Earth was the only remaining superpower in the galaxy. If humanity didn't defend the weak and helpless, no one would. Zephyr turned to his crew. "Battle stations," he said. "Let's show these Krag what humans are made of. How's that? Let me know if you would like me to modify or expand the intro in any way. I'm happy to revise it." Back on Earth, Admiral Jasper Reeves frowned at the holographic display in his office. He stroked his graying beard as he studied the report from his former protege and surrogate son, Captain Zephyr Xanatos. The Krag were a name Reeves had hoped to never hear again. He remembered the destruction they had wrought on the Arcturians and Zeltecs all too well. The images of burning cities and mountains of corpses still haunted his dreams. Reeves squared his shoulders and tapped the comlink on his desk. "Get me the President and Joint Chiefs. Priority 1. As he waited for the calls to connect, Reeves began drafting mobilization orders for Earth's defense forces. If the Krag were on the move again, humanity had to be ready. They were the only ones left who could stop the slaughter. Meanwhile, the Defiance moved into high orbit above the Thraxian homeworld. Zephyr opened a channel to the planet's surface. "This is Captain Zephyr Xanatos of the Earth ship Defiance. We come in peace and offer our assistance against the Krag invaders." There was a long pause before the view screen flickered to life, revealing a middle-aged Thraxian with red scales and piercing yellow eyes wearing ornate robes. "I am Prime Consul Varik. Why should we trust you, human? Your species is unknown to us. For all we know, you could be here to exploit our suffering for your own gain." Zephyr met Varik's gaze. "Consul, I give you my word that we only wish to help. We have faced the Krag before and know the destruction they bring. Let us aid you in defending your people." Varik was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching Zephyr's face. In the background, the sounds of explosions and screams could be heard. Finally, the consul's shoulders slumped. "Very well, Captain. We have little choice but to accept your offer. My people are dying. Do what you can for them, or—" Zephyr nodded solemnly. "We will, Consul. You have my word." The transmission ended, and Zephyr turned to his bridge crew. "I want close air support and medical teams ready to deploy to the surface. Coordinate with the Thraxian military to find out what supplies and equipment they need. We're not going to let the Krag win this one." As the Defiance's shuttles began ferrying supplies and personnel to the planet, Zephyr pulled up the data they had on the Krag. The more he read, the deeper his scowl became. The Krag were a ruthless, conquest-driven species that had cut a bloody swathe through the galaxy. They enslaved or exterminated every race they encountered, stripping their worlds of resources before moving on. "It says here the Krag believe it is their divine right to rule the universe," Zephyr's first officer, Commander Nala Katri, said, as she read over his shoulder. "That all other species are inferiors to be crushed beneath their boots." Zephyr's hands clenched into fists. "Not this time," he growled. "This time they face humans, and we don't bow to tyrants or gods. The Krag's days of conquest end here. Warlord Zagor's eyes gleamed with malevolent glee as he watched the Thraxian colonies burn on the viewscreen. For centuries, he had led the Krag in their relentless expansion, conquering world after world. Species fell before their might, like blades of grass before a scythe. The weak were enslaved, their resources stripped, their populations broken. Those who dared resist were exterminated without mercy. The Thraxians were just the latest victims in the Krag's path. A primitive race, their technology was no match for the Krag's advanced weaponry. Their ships were swatted from the sky like insects. Their cities crumbled under orbital bombardment. Zagor smiled, baring sharp teeth. The Thraxians would make excellent slaves. Those who survived the culling, at least. On the surface of the Thraxian homeworld, Zephyr wiped sweat and grime from his brow as he surveyed the wreckage of a Krag assault shuttle. The craft had been shot down by a human missile, but not before it delivered its deadly cargo of Krag shock troops. Zephyr knelt beside the corpse of a fallen Thraxian soldier, closing the reptilian's eyes with a gentle hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry we didn't get here sooner." The battle had been brutal. Krag forces swarmed over Thraxian positions, their energy weapons cutting through armor like paper. But the humans had given as good as they got. Zephyr's marines fought with a ferocity that matched the Krag's savagery. They shielded downed Thraxians with their own bodies. They stormed Krag hardpoints with reckless courage, roaring battle cries as they engaged in close-quarter combat. "Captain!" Sergeant Hawkins, Zephyr's right hand, jogged over. "We've got a problem. The Thraxian commander is refusing to send his troops back out, says they don't stand a chance. He wants to hole up in the capital and wait for the Krag to come to them." Zephyr spat a curse. "Damn it, all right, get me a line to their HQ. I need to talk some sense into him." Minutes later, Zephyr was face-to-face with Commander Sorek, his Thraxian counterpart. The alien's red scales had dulled to a sickly pink, and his eyes were haunted. "What's the point?" Sorek said, his voice leaden with despair. "You've seen what the Krag do. They'll slaughter us, just like they did the Arcturians and Zeltics." "Not this time," Zephyr growled. "We're not going to let that happen. My people are here to help, but we need your troops. We have to take the fight to the Krag, hit them before they hit us." "My soldiers are not cowards," Sorek said, "but they know a hopeless fight when they see one. They have families, Captain Xanatos, children. I won't order them to their deaths." Zephyr leaned forward, meeting Sorek's gaze. "Commander, I understand your fear, but if we lay down arms now, those families are as good as dead. The only hope your people have is to stand and fight. I swear to you, on my life, that I will do everything in my power to protect them. We humans have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Don't let the Krag win, not like this." For a long moment Sorek was silent, then slowly resolve hardened in his eyes. "Very well, Captain, my troops will fight. You have my word." As the transmission ended, Zephyr slumped back in his chair, exhaustion settling into his bones. The burdens of command weighed heavily on him. It was at times like these, with the fate of an entire species resting on his shoulders, that he felt the pull of his inner demons, the temptation to numb the pain with a drink, to lose himself in the bottle like his father before him. But Zephyr had made a promise to Sorek and to himself that he wouldn't fail. He would see this through to the end, no matter the cost. He tapped his comm. "Hawkins, tell engineering I want every scrap of intel we have on Krag tech. We're going to find a way to beat those bastards, even if we have to invent it ourselves." The situation was dire. Krag forces were overwhelming the Thraxian defenses, pushing them back on all fronts. Zephyr gritted his teeth as he watched the tactical display, the red icons of Krag ships vastly outnumbering the blue of Thraxian and human forces. They were fighting with everything they had, but it wasn't enough, not against the sheer numbers the Krag kept throwing at them. Just as despair began to creep into Zephyr's heart, a new set of contacts appeared on the display. A massive fleet of human ships, led by the imposing figure of the EAS Titan, Admiral Reeves's flagship. Zephyr felt a surge of relief and gratitude. Reeves had come through. just like he always did. The Admiral's grizzled face appeared on the view screen. "Looks like you could use a hand, Captain," he said with a wry smile. Zephyr returned the grin. "Your timing is impeccable, sir, as always." With Earth's reinforcements, the tide of battle began to turn. Human ships bristling with advanced weaponry tore into the Krag fleet. Railguns punched through shields and armor like paper. Missiles swarmed enemy ships, overwhelming point defenses. The Krag fought back with savage determination, but they were no longer the unstoppable juggernaut they had been. On the ground, human marines fought side by side with Thraxian soldiers. They pushed the Krag back, street by street, building by building. Zephyr led from the front, his tactical brilliance and courage inspiring those around him. But for every Krag ship destroyed, for every foot of ground regained, the cost was high. Human and Thraxian ships burned and broke apart under relentless Krag fire. Soldiers fell by the dozens, then the hundreds. The Krag threw themselves at human and Thraxian lines, with no regard for their own lives, heedless of the mounting casualties. As the battle raged, Zephyr's calm crackled to life. It was Varric, and there was panic in the Thraxian leader's voice. "Captain, we have a situation. A bomb has detonated in the defense headquarters. Many of my top officers are dead, and our communications are crippled." Zephyr felt a chill run down his spine. "Sabotage," he said grimly. "The Krag must have had help on the inside." "It gets worse," Varric said. "Before the explosion, there was a massive data transfer from our network to a Krag ship. They have our defense plans, our troop deployments, everything." Zephyr pounded a fist on the console. The Krag had outplayed them. All this time they'd had a spy within the Thraxian government, a traitor funneling them information while they were distracted by the obvious threat. He looked around at the dead and dying littering the battlefield, the fires and toppled buildings surrounding them, the cost of trust misplaced. "We need to find the traitor," Zephyr growled. "Before they do any more damage." He turned to Sergeant Hawkins. "Round up any surviving Thraxian officers and officials. We need to root out this spy before they bring the whole damn war effort down around our ears." As Hawkins led his squad off into the city, Zephyr opened a channel to Admiral Reeves. "Sir, we've got a situation groundside. The Krag have human collaborators inside the Thraxian government. They've been feeding them intel." Reeves's face darkened. "I had a feeling those split-chin bastards weren't fighting this clean. We need to plug that leak, Captain. I don't care how you do it, but find that son of a bitch and make them pay." "With pleasure, sir," Zephyr said coldly. But even as he said the words, he felt a twinge of unease. The Krag spy could be anyone. A high-ranking official, a trusted advisor, hell, maybe even Varric himself. The possibilities were endless, and the paranoia threatened to choke him. He squared his shoulders. He couldn't afford to let doubt cloud his judgment. Too much was riding on him. With renewed resolve, Zephyr headed off to coordinate with Varric and Hawkins. They had a traitor to catch and a war to win, and failure was not an option. The revelations about the Thraxian traitors hit Zephyr like a gut punch. Anger and betrayal burned in his chest as he thought of all the lives lost, all the suffering endured, because of their treachery. But there was no time to dwell on it. They had to act fast before the Krag could exploit the information they'd been given. Zephyr met with Varric and Admiral Reeves in the Defiance's briefing room. The three leaders pored over star maps and intelligence reports, searching for a way to strike back at the Krag. "We have to hit them where it hurts," Zephyr said, his jaw set with determination. "Cut off the head of the snake." Varric nodded grimly. "Agreed. If we can eliminate Zagor, it will throw their chain of command into chaos. But his flagship will be heavily guarded. It's a suicide mission." Admiral Reeves leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "Not if we have the right plan and the right people to carry it out." And so the plan was formed. A small strike team led by Zephyr and Varric would infiltrate Zagor's ship using a captured Krag shuttle. Once on board, they would fight their way to the bridge and confront the warlord. Zephyr handpicked his team, Hawkins, Naylor, and a handful of his best Marines. They were joined by Varric and a squad of Thraxian commandos. The night before the mission, Zephyr found himself alone in his quarters, staring at his reflection in the mirror. Doubt and fear gnawed at him. Could he really do this? Take a life in cold blood? He'd killed before in the heat of battle, but this felt different. A knock at the door startled him. It was Nala. She stepped into the room, her face etched with concern. "You okay, Captain?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I keep thinking about what we're about to do, about the blood on my hands." Nala put a hand on his shoulder. "It's not murder, it's justice. Zagor is a monster who will never stop destroying until he's destroyed himself." "Maybe," Zephyr said. "Doesn't make it feel any easier. I just hope I'm strong enough to do what needs to be done." The strike team assembled in the hangar at 500 hours. There was no rousing speech, no fanfare. Just a group of grim-faced warriors preparing for battle. They boarded the Krag shuttle and set off, gliding silently through the void toward Zagor's flagship. As they approached, Zephyr felt a strange calm settle over him. All his doubts and fears faded away, replaced by a cold, focused clarity. This is it, he thought, the moment of truth. Then all hell broke loose. Alarms blared as the shuttle was detected. Krag fighters swarmed around them, energy weapons blazing. The shuttle juked and jinked, evading the worst of the fire, but it was only a matter of time. "Brace for impact," Zephyr yelled as a blast rocked the ship. They hit the flagship's hull hard, the shuttle crumpling around them. Somehow, miraculously, they were alive. Zephyr kicked open the hatch, his rifle at the ready. "Go! Go! Go!" They spilled out into a corridor, meeting a hail of blaster fire. Zephyr and his team pushed forward, laying down suppressing fire as they advanced. The Krag were everywhere, pouring from side passages and maintenance hatches. It was a brutal, close-quarters battle, filled with the screams of the dying and the stench of burnt flesh. Inch by bloody inch, they fought their way to the bridge. Varric took a hit to the shoulder, his green blood splattering the bulkhead. Hawkins caught a blaster bolt in the chest, slumping lifeless to the deck, but still, they pushed on. Then they were through the final set of blast doors and onto the bridge. There, waiting for them, was Zagor. The Krag leader was a towering figure in blood-red armor, his eyes glinting with malice. "You dare to challenge me?" he roared. "I am death incarnate!" Zephyr raised his weapon and charged forward, a battle cry on his lips. He felt his team at his back as they clashed with Zagor's elite guard. The warlord was a force of nature, his energy blade flashing as he cut down foes left and right. Zephyr fought his way toward him, his heart pounding in his ears. Their blades met in a clash of sparks and plasma. Back and forth they dueled across the bridge, locked in a deadly dance. Xaga was immensely strong and skilled, but Zephyr was faster. He ducked and wove, landing strike after strike. But Zagor would not fall. Zephyr's arms burned with exhaustion. His vision blurred. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs. He stumbled, leaving himself open for just a split second. It was enough. Zagor's blade sliced into Zephyr's side, drawing a scream of agony from the captain's throat. He fell to his knees, his weapon clattering away. Zagor loomed over him, a cruel smile on his face. "Now you die, human filth," he snarled, raising his blade for the killing blow. In that moment, Zephyr saw the cycle of violence stretching out before him, an endless tit-for-tat that would consume both their species until there was nothing left but ashes and dust. He looked up at Zagor, his eyes defiant. "No, it ends here." With a final surge of strength, he threw himself forward, not to attack but to embrace. He wrapped his arms around the warlord in a crushing hug, pinning Zagor's arms to his sides. The Krag leader roared in confusion and outrage, struggling to break free. "Don't you see?" Zephyr whispered. "As long as we keep fighting, nobody wins." For a long moment they stayed locked together, human and Krog, enemies turned allies in the cause of peace. Then slowly, Zagor relaxed. His blade clattered to the floor. Around them the battle stuttered to a halt as both sides stared in disbelief. Zephyr released Zagor, stepping back. The warlord looked at him, something like respect in his eyes. "You are a strange creature, human, but perhaps there is wisdom in your words." From there it was like a dam breaking. Crag soldiers lowered their weapons. Thraxian commandos did the same, tentative and uncertain, but the moment held. Zephyr and Zagor stood together on the bridge, former foes united in purpose. There would be much to discuss in the coming days, treaties to negotiate, grievances to be aired, trust to be slowly rebuilt. But for now, there was peace. As Zephyr looked out at the stars, he felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but they had taken the first step. Perhaps with time and understanding, the cycle could be broken after all. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support me, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And for every comment that says, "I liked the story," I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.